long ago, from the east, stories of a golden fleece. We told a few to carve out a piece of India. And now to the children of Angus, India's only a name, a sound in the mouth of a stranger, a piece in a history game. But to some who owe nothing to memory, India's more than a dream. She's the Aya, the faceless protector, who welcomed the infant scream to India. Those who live north of Tweed know how little people need. They also know that harvest the seed in India. And so it goes everywhere. Some decide how others fare. As true here as ever was there in India. And now to the children of Angus, India's only a name, a sound in the mouth of a stranger, a piece in a history game. But to some who owe nothing to memory, India's more than a dream. She's the Aya, the faceless protector, who welcomed the infant scream to India. Raised upon banks of Tay, born 5,000 miles away. How fine the tie that twines us today with India. With India. With India.
Rod, that song was called India. It's on the Skirly Beat album that the Easy Club made. Why did you write it? What's India got to do with the children of Angus, specifically you as one of the children of Angus?
Aye, well, I am a child of Angus, right enough. A Burke Hill laddie then was an Angoid, as they call them. I wrote the song as a result of a few years of gradually acquiring the realisation that many people in Scotland didn't know much about the area, about the Dundee area. Nowadays, of course, the main road up the northeast goes round the town, but still, I'm quite sure that for a lot of Scots people, that's as close as they ever reach. And this realisation, I found quite odd, because throughout my childhood, it was the biggest place I knew of. You know, I mean, the Glasgows and all the rest of it were places that you heard of on the radio or you saw on a map. You know, you didn't actually travel there. Then that became linked with the idea that that also, in my experience of the town, was this exotic link with India, which was as I'm trying to explain rather awkwardly, made all the more exotic by the fact that the town had this kind of anonymous presence in Scotland. So far from being a backwater, it had this international, global, exotic link with, of all places, India. How romantic, you know. As a child, I was always aware that I'd appeared on this earth over there. My folks had gone out there just after the war to seek fortune, if not fame. However, after the war, it was about the end of the era that Scots had any reason to expect that, and so they discovered, and they didn't last long out there. I came back aged about 4 months.
There are lots of things about Dundee, or in Dundee, which remind you of the imperial past, if you like.
Oh, sure. I mean, my childhood was spent dropping in on my folks' friends, and a lot of them were people who they'd met out there, and they had the shared experience. You know, I have childhood memories of living rooms filled with Indian artefacts, ebony everywhere, ivory elephants on the mantelpiece, all these odd things, which only, the strangeness of them only became clear gradually.
Did you have a favourite artefact that you used to, something maybe in your auntie's house or something like that you remember?
A cigar box I do remember, that was just the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen then. That was the other bit too, that the Indian stuff in the houses was always more interesting. It was always more intricately carved, or shinier, or just more interesting to a young laddie. A part of the realisation of this link between India and Scotland was, or rather a part of the realisation of its curiosity, was the realisation of the fact that all it needs is a couple of guys, you know, a Caird or a Low or a Bonar or whoever, a couple of 100 years ago, say, or slightly less maybe, having a good idea for making a couple of bob. And that's all it was. And just because of that, the lives of millions of people over the last maybe a couple of 100 years, as I say, have been completely other than how they would have been. And I suppose I was anxious in the song not to celebrate it, because at the end of the day, the jute mill workers were getting exploited just as much as the Indian ones were. I mean, I remember my granddad worked out there as an engineer in a jute mill. He invented a dead man's hand on the mills, on the looms. I'm no great expert on the equipment, but it was a dead man's hand, whereby when the Indian operatives fainted in the heat, as they did regularly all day long, you know, they'd drop at regular intervals, and they'd drop into the machine. And of course, they'd all get chewed up. And the response was just to drag them out and replace them with another guy off the queue, right? So when labour gradually became more expensive, and for no other reason, they asked my granddad to invent a dead man's hand, whereby if he fainted, the machine would stop and the Indian would land in a safe, you know, a bit of equipment. So production wouldn't be halted as they were dragging the, you know, let's go into detail, as they were dragging the pieces of sliced meat out of the machine. So essentially, for economic reasons only, he invented this thing. You know, if you want an example of the reason why a socialist outlook on all this is inevitable, it's as clear a one as you could want.
Those who know poverty in the place they call Dundee cast their minds back over the sea to India. Love